It is not an understatement to say that this is my favorite third-party resin figure by far. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven. Today with a third-party resin figure review, a really good one over here. And spoiler alert, this is my favorite third-party resin figure purchased to date. I have not purchased many, maybe 4 or 5, and I have reviewed 1 or 2 extra resin figures that I did not purchase. I borrowed it from an owner. But yeah, this is hands down my favorite buy yet, and we'll get into the details in a moment. Okay, introducing ABsinthe Studios 1x6 scale, Jingliu from Honkai Star Rail, and HSR as I call it, is the hottest game franchise at the moment. Yeah, genuine scale figures are starting to come out very slowly from Apex Toys. Meanwhile, the third-party side of things, yeah, there are at least 24 different Jingliu figures, including the really lewd ones, and maybe even 24. Based on my estimates, is an understatement, a lot of figures of her because she is really popular. And the reason why I bought one is because I really loved her character design. I am a huge sucker for pretty women, pretty girls with huge weapons. It can be a black rock shooter. I have like 3 black rock shooter figures at home. FGO as well. God Eater, I do have Elisa and Shield Alencon figures at home as well. Yeah, all these female characters with huge weapons, be it a cannon, a sword, or a gun, does not matter. Extra points for armor. I bought this for the character design alone. Yes, simple as that. And boy, I am very impressed with this figure. But before that, a little bit of specs over here. Now, this figure, if you go for the deluxe version, is also really close to about 280 or 300 US dollars, right? Yeah, deluxe version where you get this extra figure over here, which I would say is, I mean, feel free to skip it, right? This is just like a fan service version of this Jingliu figure over here. And if I'm not mistaken, even with the standard version without this Hadaka version, you are getting two head sculpts. So you are not losing out on much. I would say you can skip the deluxe version if you want to save a bit of money, but you're not paying that much more extra for this one over here, which in my opinion is once again very overrated. I said the same thing about Yae Miko by Imagination Studio. It is okay, it is fine, but once you buy too much stuff like this, you'll start to get bored of it. That is what I feel. As for the size of this figure, this is very tall for a 1x6 scale. We are talking about 34 centimeters on this version over here, all the way to the top of her head. Meanwhile, this Hadaka version is 31 cm simply because the base is, yeah, it's lower in a way. Personally, I think 34 centimeters, even including that base, is more like 1x5.5 scale. I mean, even if you deducted the height of the base over here, the figure would be exactly 12 inches or 30 cm. And that is a bit tall for a 1x6 scale female character because you know the female characters tend to be shorter than the male characters. And if male 1x6 scale figures are exactly 12 inches, this by right should be a bit shorter. Not that I should be complaining because bigger is often better, right, when it comes to figures. So yeah, I am not going to complain about how tall she is. That is a plus, by the way. Before moving on to the figure itself, a quick mention about the unboxing, which was part of my figure haul video from a week ago. Okay, once again, just like my Imagination Studio Yae Miko figure, there was no instruction sheet in the box, so I had to figure out things on my own, how to put all of the parts together. But fortunately, this figure is a lot easier to put together compared to my experience with Yae Miko. The magnets and everything in this figure is great. No excessively loose parts or any of that sort, and in fact for certain parts there are even metal rods being used to reinforce the figure. Overall, the unboxing experience felt a lot more premium than the other 2 Imagination Studio figures I purchased in the past, both Yae Miko and Kafka. From the packaging, the box, all the way to putting the parts together and seeing metal rods in plain view, instantly it feels that ABsinthe Studio is a notch higher than Imagination Studio in terms of quality, packaging, and product presentation. Overall, packaging was solid as well. I have no complaints about that. But yeah, As usual with third-party resin figures, or any resin figure for the matter, if you choose to purchase one, you are always taking the risk of accepting something that is broken, which did happen to this pair of figures. But I think there are a few things to think about over here, right? Is it because of a quality control issue from ABsinthe Studio? Or is it because of the packaging part where there is a problem, when they pack the figure into the box? Or did it happen during shipping? Interestingly though, if you turn around both figures, both head sculpts over here, they are broken at the same exact part. That same hair strand is broken on both head sculpts, which led me to think, is it a design flaw? Like, when they design the figure in 3D program or during the 3D printing process, there is a flaw at the manufacturing stage at the same part. So that might be why, because if it was caused by shipping, like the postman threw my parcel and something broke, then the breakage should be completely random, right? But in this specific case, both were broken at the same exact part, which led me to believe there is a design flaw somewhere with this figure. Is it a major concern? Well, by now, my 4th or 5th resin figure, I think I am more mentally prepared to accept any breakages by now. As long it is not a major one, I think I can accept it, given that there are no genuine licensed PVC figure of Jingliu yet. But this kind of very small, tiny breakage, I think I can accept it. If you are feeling courageous, you can use a grinder or sandpaper to sand it down until the very edge over here is sharp again, and then you use an airbrush and spray paint dark navy blue paint over, and it will look fine as new. So there is an option to do so, but whether you want to do it is another matter, because you need to sand it, and that means losing some paint which you need to repaint later. That is up to you. Gluing it back is not really an option because of how small the surface area is. I don't think it will stick. So for now, I am going to leave her be because I think she still looks great. The second breakage, which is actually fixable, happened to this Hadaka version over here, where I think I placed a bit too much pressure when I was holding the right arm over here when assembling the figure. So I placed too much pressure, and the black color ribbon or black color cloth over here broke off from her grasp. And you can see some black color paint underneath, where there appears to be a very small resin pack which fractured off. Though I think this can be glued back with super glue or epoxy, right? Not a huge issue over here. But this is a perfect example of how fragile resin can be. And maybe there is more room for improvement in the future from pretty much every brand I have reviewed so far when it comes to the durability of the figures itself. Other than that, these two figures, they turned out great. I have no complaints at all. But, I forgot to mention one more thing. Another design flaw which did not result in the breakage, by the way. This piece of flap over here, which is supposed to be extending out from her left arm behind her over here. It is just part of the character design. The hair strands are sort of, getting in the way, and since this isn't PVC, I do not want to even try to pry apart the hair strands to insert this thing, because I might break the hair strands. So this is not a flexible PVC. So I am choosing not to plug this part into the left arm over here. I would rather leave it aside and maybe keep it somewhere, right? It is not like you can see this part missing because it is behind, by the way. So there is actually a slight gap where I'm supposed to insert this cloth piece into this gap in between, but it is really difficult and I don't want to take the risk. Now moving on to the actual figure itself, it is not an understatement to say that this is my favorite third-party resin figure by far. Firstly, the sculpting. Details galore, and there are no rough edges, no rough surfaces to speak of, no ugly gaps or seam lines to be seen on this figure. So the quality control on the sculpting part, except the hair strand of course, this is a solid 9 out of 10 as well. I don't have any complaints with the figure. Moving on to the most important part of the sculpting, which is the face. Now you get the option to display her with the blindfold on or without the blindfold. Now, which one do I prefer? This is difficult because, for example, if I were to buy a 2B figure from Nier Automata, I don't think I hate a figure of her with the blindfold on at all, because that is like her signature character design. That is her trademark. Moving on to the other head sculpt without the blindfold, I do like it a lot. I find her really pretty, quite accurate to the original game character design. No complaints at all. Though if I were to pick some faults over here, I feel like her head sculpt or her face is slightly elongated in a way, you know. Yeah, slightly too oval to my liking. But at the same time, I think that isn't too far off from the game character design, from what I can recall. And yeah, that concludes the sculpting department. Now moving on to the paint job. This figure of Jingliu over here is the perfect example of what I look for in the paintwork of any anime figure, be it a genuine one or a third-party one. The very first thing that caught my eye when I opened the box itself was the paintwork on the hairwear. There are so many gradients of blue color over here, transitioning in a very gradual, smooth manner. And whoa, this is what I love so much about this figure. This is where I would give ABsinthe Studio nearly full marks for the paintwork, not just for the hair but also for the rest of the figure. Translucent, transparent parts which require color injecting. Usually you will pour alcohol ink into resin before 3D print it and you get this color over here. The second thing was that the paintwork on the figure's outfit, the armor and everything else, this reminds me of what I see in Apex Toys figures, very similar. So the detail paintwork is very precise, no paint bleeding or very ugly scratches to be seen over here. Everything is just precise and accurately painted. So none of that Fat Company nonsense bleeding out from the sides with these gold color trims, for example. Fat Company does that a lot. None of that over here. I have always been a big fan of intricate details, and this figure is totally up my alley in terms of the kind of character design and detail level I would love to see in a figure overall. And moving on to the last part of this figure, the base. Yeah, the connection between the foot peg and the base is strong enough. You see, I can actually shake the figure a bit. I can actually afford to do this, and I don't have to worry too much about the figure falling off like Yae Miko earlier from Imagination Studio. So the connection is actually quite solid, though I don't recommend you doing this at all. Please don't. The next thing is about the base design, which is very attractive. Look at, once again, all of the color gradients in the transparent parts. And those two arms sticking out from the base, I love it so much. Like, there is nothing to complain about the base at all. It is also weighty and heavy enough to keep the figure stable. Very nice work coming from ABsinthe Studio. Though at the same time, this is not the most impressive base I've seen for a figure of Jingliu. There are other third-party resin figure brands out there doing a far more extravagant looking base, which resulted in an even higher price, which I am not too keen into. Like, I don't want my figures to be too complicated and prone to breakage as a result. Yeah, so I think a base like this is good enough. It is nice enough. And as a conclusion for today's figure review, can I recommend this figure? Yeah, I mean, as long you don't mind the potential of one single hair strand fracturing potential, it might not happen to everyone, I would say this figure is highly recommended. Assuming that you can find one in stock, of course. This figure just came out in June 2024, I think around mid or late June, so very recent at the time of publishing of this review. It may still be possible to find one for a relatively normal pricing. So if you like what you're looking at in today's figure review, I would suggest you to quickly hunt down this figure before it is too late. It is a really good purchase. So with today's figure review, if you find this review to be helpful or informative, please give this video a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel for more content every week and high quality reviews like today's review. Until then, I'll see you guys again very soon. Have a nice day and goodbye.